I was 53, and honestly, I felt stronger, wiser, and more grounded than ever. But the world had this habit of treating women my age like background noise. Like we existed only to fill space, not to own it, not to command it. My husband Daniel had just taken a new job at a rising tech firm in Seattle, and he was excited because the salary was great and the schedule was flexible and the office culture seemed youthful and energetic. Youthful was fine. Energetic was fine. But I did not know yet that his new boss would take youthful as a weapon. Her name was Zoe Hart, 32. Blonde hair, sharp walk, sharper tongue, and an ego that looked like it hit the gym twice a day. Daniel came home after his first week and told me she was tough. I smiled and said tough women are usually efficient. But what I was not expecting was the way she treated him. Or worse, the way she tried to treat me. The first time I met her was at the company mixer. She strutted in wearing a shimmering wine-colored dress and heels that clicked like they were announcing her arrival to every corner of the room. Daniel introduced us. I smiled and extended my hand. Zoe looked at me with a half grin that felt like an insult wrapped in silk. "Oh, you are Daniel's wife. You look great for your age." The way she said "for your age" felt like she had slapped a sticker on my forehead that read expired but tolerated. I kept a warm smile because I learned a long time ago that the strongest women do not raise their voice. They raise their impact. And in that moment, I chose to let her think whatever she wanted. She walked away swaying with confidence, but there was something else too. A glance she kept throwing toward Daniel as if she owned him. As if his loyalty and love were a toy she could pick up whenever she wanted. The next morning, Daniel told me Zoe asked him to stay late for a project. Twice a week. Then 3 times. Then almost every day. I made him lunch for office and packed his favorite snacks like always. But then he came home with the lunch untouched. Every time. I asked why and hesitated before answering. Zoe brings food for the whole team. It feels rude if I do not join. Something in my chest tightened. I was not jealous. I was observant. Very observant. Then came the change in his phone. He started receiving messages at night. Work reminders. Urgent notes. Sudden tasks. All from Zoe. One night at almost 11, she texted, "Call me, it's important." Daniel looked at me apologetically and stepped into the hallway. I sat there on the couch listening to the faint hum of his voice, and something told me Zoe was testing boundaries. Not his. Mine. The next week, Zoe invited spouses for a team dinner. We reached the restaurant and her eyes landed on me instantly. The same half grin. The same tone. "You really put effort into looking elegant. Women your age rarely do." Daniel flinched. I smiled again. "Grace is a gift you give yourself at any age." She blinked, not expecting that. Throughout the dinner, she leaned too close to Daniel, laughed too hard at his jokes, touched his arm with every excuse. I stayed calm because insecure women react. Powerful women calculate. And I was calculating every detail. Who she spoke to, who she ignored, and how she used her charm like a spotlight and a shield at the same time. Later that night, she announced a new project team and placed Daniel right next to her role. She said she wanted someone dependable, someone she could trust, someone who could stay late. A few teammates exchanged knowing looks. I caught every one of them. When we reached home, I sat beside Daniel and gently asked him, "Do you notice how she speaks to you?" Daniel nodded slowly. I said nothing for a moment. Then he sighed. "I know. I just try to keep things professional. She is intense." Intense was an understatement. What she really was a storm. A storm that thought I was a weak little fence that would break the moment she pushed. She had no idea who I was. She had no idea the battles I had survived. Losing my parents early. Raising 2 kids. Fighting life and its chaos. Winning every time. I was 53. Not fragile. Not invisible. I was unstoppable. And Zoe was about to learn that. But first, I needed to step into her world. Quietly. Silently. Powerfully. Because the best way to take down someone who underestimates you is to let them keep underestimating you. The next morning, I woke up with a calm fire inside me. Not anger. Not jealousy. Just clarity. Clarity that Zoe was not simply a tough boss. She was a woman who thrived on control. And Daniel was becoming one of the pieces she wanted to move around her board. I packed his lunch again even though I knew it might come back untouched. It was not about the food. It was about the message. A wife who cared. A wife who paid attention. A wife who was very much present. Daniel kissed my cheek before leaving and said, "I will try to come home early today." I smiled because his effort mattered. But I knew Zoe would not make it easy for him. Around noon, I called his office to ask something small. A delivery detail. Nothing big. The receptionist answered and said, "Oh, Daniel is in the conference room with Zoe." Again. I thanked her and hung up. Something inside me whispered, "Go see for yourself." Because sometimes you have to step into the battlefield to understand the enemy. So I changed into a simple navy blouse and jeans, put on light makeup, and headed to his office with a container of fresh cookies. The kind Daniel loved. The kind Zoe would not expect. When I reached the floor, I noticed how people stared. Not rudely, just curiously, like they were trying to read my presence. I walked to the glass conference room and saw Zoe standing close to Daniel. Too close. She was pointing at his laptop screen, her hand nearly touching his waist. Daniel looked uncomfortable but kept his focus on work. I knocked lightly on the glass. Daniel looked up with surprise and relief. Zoe turned her head slowly, like a queen being interrupted. Her expression tightened for half a second before she put on her professional smile. Daniel opened the door for me. "Hey honey, everything okay?" I said yes, I was nearby and thought I would drop these off for the team. Zoe looked at the cookies as if they were ancient artifacts. "That is sweet of you." Her tone said something else. Unnecessary. Unwanted. Uninvited. I placed the container on the table and smiled at the team. A few thanked me genuinely. Zoe cleared her throat. "We are in the middle of something important." I nodded. "Of course. I will not interrupt." "Daniel, I will see you tonight." I placed a gentle hand on his arm. A deliberate gesture. Not desperate. Not insecure. But a reminder. He is my husband. Not your project. As I walked out, I heard two employees whisper, "His wife is so classy. Zoe is going to hate that." I did not react, but I heard every word. Later in the evening, Daniel came home early. Earlier than he had in weeks. He sat beside me and said, "Zoe was not happy you came today." I raised an eyebrow. "Why?" He sighed. "She said you were checking on me." I laughed softly. "Checking on you?" "I brought cookies. That is all." Daniel nodded. "I know. But she said it looked like you did not trust her leadership." Leadership. That word made me smile. People who crave control often disguise it as leadership. That night I lay in bed thinking, Zoe had started something, and I was going to finish it. The next morning, Daniel left early for a team evaluation meeting. I stayed home and brewed coffee. And then my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. It was Zoe. It read, "You visiting the office was unprofessional. Please avoid disrupting Daniel's workflow. He is needed here." I stared at the message. The boldness. The entitlement. The assumption that she could dictate my movement or my relationship with my husband. I typed a reply, but then I deleted it. Because powerful women do not argue. They act. Instead, I called Daniel during his lunch break. He answered softly. "Hey, everything okay?" I asked casually. "Does your boss have the authority to text me?" He went silent, then quietly said, "She texted you." I told him the message. He sounded frustrated. "I am so sorry, she should not have done that." I brushed it off. "It is fine. Let her believe what she wants. Let her think I am quiet. Let her believe I will back down. Because women like Zoe only understand one thing. A woman who does not crumble." That weekend, Daniel's company held a charity gala. Formal, elegant, high profile. Zoe would be there. So I decided this was the moment. Not to confront her, but to show her. Show her exactly who I was. Show her exactly what real strength looks like. Show her the kind of woman she should never underestimate. I wore a deep emerald dress. Simple, strong, commanding. When I walked into the hall with Daniel, I felt eyes turn. Not because I was flashy, but because confidence at 53 is its own spotlight. Zoe saw us, and her face changed. Just slightly, but enough. She walked toward us and said, "You look very different tonight." I smiled warmly. Age has nothing to do with style, only self-respect. She stiffened. Daniel squeezed my hand. I knew he felt the tension too. The night had just begun, but I could already feel it. Zoe had pushed me. Now I was stepping forward. Not to fight, but to win. The charity gala hall shimmered with golden lights and soft music floating through the air. People mingled with drinks in their hands, making polite conversation dressed in tuxedos and gowns. But even in all that noise, I could feel Zoe's eyes tracking every move I made. She was not used to being overshadowed, and tonight she felt her spotlight shifting. Daniel and I walked to our table, and several people greeted us warmly. A few even complimented my look and confidence, and every compliment tightened the frustration on Zoe's face. I was not trying to compete. I simply existed fully and unapologetically. And that alone was enough to shake her. A senior board member named Carol approached us. She was in her late 60s, elegant and respected. She smiled at Daniel and then looked at me. "So you're the wife I have heard about." I returned the smile. "All good things, I hope." She laughed softly. "All strong things." Zoe was watching, her jaw slightly tense, her posture stiff. I knew then that this evening was not about aggression. It was about presence. Presence is a power most people underestimate, especially those who mistake age for weakness. When dinner began, Zoe intentionally took a seat right next to Daniel. I did not move. I sat across from them, watching quietly. Daniel felt awkward but polite. Zoe leaned toward him while talking as if I was invisible, her fingers brushing his chair. Her laugh louder than necessary. Her smile too bright, too sharp, too forced. At one point, she placed her hand on Daniel's arm, a gesture that immediately crossed every boundary. Daniel subtly pulled away. She pretended not to notice. Carol, who sat beside me, leaned closer. "Is that the new boss?" I nodded. Carol sighed. "Ambitious. Too ambitious. These types burn fast, but they try to burn others first." Her words stayed with me, because they were true. Zoe was burning herself with her own arrogance. Halfway through dinner, Zoe turned to me suddenly. "So, how do you spend your time?" Her tone sweet but sharp, like she wanted to measure me, compare me, reduce me. I answered calmly. "Living well, loving fully, supporting my family, growing in my own ways." Age teaches you to prioritize what matters. She gave a tight smile. "Must be nice not having the pressure of a demanding job." There it was. The jab. The attempt to belittle me. I replied gently. "Every woman works. Some get paid for it. Some create value beyond money. Either way, work is work. But respect, that is earned differently." Her smile faltered. Carol looked at me with admiration while Zoe tried to mask her irritation behind her wine glass. Later, when everyone moved toward the dance floor, Daniel excused himself to speak with an executive. Zoe saw the opportunity and walked toward me. Alone. Her steps slow, calculated. Her smile thin and cold. She crossed her arms and spoke in a low voice only I could hear. I know what you are trying to do. Trying to make an impression. Trying to intimidate me. Her words did not shake me. They amused me. I replied softly. I do not try. I simply am. That line hit her. I could see it. She tried again. Daniel is important to this company, and I need him focused. Not distracted by unnecessary influences. Unnecessary influences. She meant me. His wife. His partner. His world. I almost laughed. Instead, I leaned slightly closer. Not threatening. Just clear. Daniel is focused. But he is not owned. And neither am I. Your position does not give you the right to cross personal boundaries. I value professionalism. I hope you learn to value it too. Zoe blinked. Her expression cracking. She had expected fear. Nervousness. Defensiveness. But what she got was strength. Calm. And unwavering confidence. Before she could respond, Carol joined us. She placed a hand on my arm and smiled. Come, dear, I want to introduce you to someone. Zoe stepped back as if dismissed. And perhaps she was. As Carol guided me away, she whispered, do not worry about her. Women who lead with insecurity always collapse under the weight of their own ego. I glanced back at Zoe. She stood still, jaw clenched, eyes narrow. Her posture said one thing. She was not done. But neither was I. After the gala, Daniel and I drove home in quiet comfort. He held my hand and said, thank you for being with me tonight. I think Zoe is getting out of control. I squeezed his hand gently. She thinks I am weak. She thinks age is a limitation. She thinks wrong. Daniel smiled. You were incredible tonight. You were strong, classy, and unshakable. I rested my head back and breathed deeply. Because I knew the battle had shifted. Zoe had seen my strength. Now she would push harder. Challenge more. Try to win a game she did not understand. But I was ready. More ready than she could possibly imagine. Because age does not soften a woman. It sharpens her. And Zoe was about to experience that truth the hard way. The week after the gala felt different. Zoe was quieter at work, according to Daniel. Not warm. Not friendly. Just calculating. A woman who had been challenged for the first time and was deciding her next move. But silence from people like her never meant peace. It meant planning. On Tuesday, Daniel came home frustrated. He dropped his bag on the couch and rubbed his forehead. Zoe reassigned our entire project without telling me. I asked why. She said she wanted someone who could give more commitment. He sighed. I think she is punishing me for leaving the gala early. I placed a hand on his arm. She is testing dominance. And she thinks you are the way to get to me. Daniel looked at me with tired eyes. I do not want work to become a battlefield. I nodded. I know. But sometimes it becomes one even if we do not choose it. The next morning, Daniel left early again. But this time I did not stay home. I wanted to understand Zoe's world. Not to interfere. To observe. To feel her energy. To see her tactics firsthand. I drove to his office building and asked the receptionist if I could wait in the lobby. She recognized me from before and smiled. Of course you can. I sat with a magazine open, but I was not reading. I watched the elevator. The entrance. The employees. And after 30 minutes, Zoe walked in. She did not see me at first. She was on her phone barking instructions, moving fast, heels clicking like warning signs. Then she lifted her head and froze when she saw me. Her surprise flickered into annoyance, then rearranged itself into a professional smile. She walked toward me slowly and sat down beside me without asking. Her perfume sharp. Her presence even sharper. Visiting again. Her voice carried fake politeness. I nodded. I had an appointment nearby. Thought I would say hello. She gave a small laugh. The kind women give when they pretend they are not threatened. That is sweet. But Daniel is very busy. We have deadlines. He needs focus. Focus. Her favorite word. Really, she meant. He needs distance from you. He needs to be controlled by me. I kept my voice steady. I am not here for him. I am here because I wanted to understand something. She raised an eyebrow. Understand what? I looked at her directly. Why my presence bothers you so much? Her expression cracked for a second. Barely. But enough. She leaned forward. Your presence does not bother me. I just value professionalism. I nodded. Then may I ask something? She folded her arms. Go ahead. Why did you text me last week telling me what I should or should not do? Should that not also fall under professionalism? Her lips tightened. She was not expecting me to bring that up. She thought she had intimidated me that night. She thought I had stayed quiet out of fear, not strategy. She spoke slowly. Sometimes spouses cross boundaries, and I have to make sure my employees are not distracted. I tilted my head. Distracted. Or unavailable to your control. Zoe inhaled sharply, her mask slipping for a moment. Her voice dropped. You think you know me. You do not. I answered gently. I know the type. Ambition without integrity. Confidence without self-awareness. Power without balance. And fear. Deep fear. Fear of women you cannot manipulate. Her eyes flashed. Anger. Shock. Maybe even insecurity. Before she could respond, the elevator dinged. Daniel stepped out. He looked startled seeing us sitting together. Zoe straightened instantly, her fake smile returning. Daniel, your wife, just stopped by, she said in her sweetest tone. I wanted to make sure everything is running smoothly. I stood up. Everything is perfectly smooth. I then touched Daniel's arm. We should grab lunch this afternoon if you can take a break. Zoe stiffened. Daniel nodded. Absolutely. I smiled politely at Zoe. Have a good day. As Daniel and I walked out, he whispered, What did she say to you? I smiled calmly. Nothing I cannot handle. But I could feel it. Zoe was losing grip. And losing control makes insecure people dangerous. That evening, Daniel checked his email and frowned. She scheduled me for a weekend work retreat. 2 nights. Last minute. Not optional. I already knew. This was her next move. Separate us. Remove me from the picture. Create pressure. Create dependency. I placed my hand on his. Do not worry. Something tells me this is about to turn. He looked confused. Turn how? I smiled. People like Zoe eventually reveal themselves. All it takes is the right moment. And that moment arrived sooner than I expected. 2 days later, Daniel came home early again. His face pale. His voice tense. We need to talk. I sat down beside him. Go on. He took a breath. One of the executives pulled me aside today. They heard things about Zoe. Unprofessional behavior. Crossing boundaries. Treating certain employees unfairly. And he hesitated. And they mentioned she seems overly interested in me. Everything paused. This was it. The moment. The window opening. I felt calm. Very calm. Because truth eventually exposes itself. Daniel looked at me. I think they want to investigate her. And they asked me if I've noticed anything inappropriate. I gently held his hand. And what did you say? He sighed. I told them yes. I told them she crosses lines. She makes me uncomfortable. And she tries to involve herself in my personal life. A wave of relief passed through me. For the first time, Daniel had spoken clearly. Directly. Fearlessly. I nodded. This is good. This is the beginning. He looked confused. Beginning of what? I looked him in the eyes. Beginning of Zoe learning what real accountability looks like. Beginning of her discovering that age does not make a woman weak. It makes her unstoppable. Because now, her mask was cracking. Her power was shifting. And her downfall was starting. But this was just the beginning. I had not even stepped in fully yet. And when I did, Zoe would understand the real meaning of strength. When Daniel told me the executives were starting to question Zoe, everything inside me shifted. Not in triumph, not in revenge, but in recognition. Recognition that every moment I had stayed calm, every moment I had chosen dignity over chaos had led here. To truth rising on its own. Because real strength is quiet. And quiet strength always creates impact. The next morning, Daniel left for work with a strange mix of relief and tension in his eyes. He knew things were changing. He knew Zoe would feel the shift. And a woman like her never reacts lightly when control slips from her fingers. I watched him drive away, then sat at the kitchen table thinking. I had not planned to involve myself. I had only defended my space, my marriage, my dignity. But now the situation had grown bigger than me, bigger than Daniel, bigger than a few inappropriate comments or unwanted closeness. Now the company was watching. Now the walls around Zoe were narrowing. Now she would become desperate. And desperate people often make their biggest mistakes. Around noon, Daniel texted, "We need to talk later." Something happened. My breath tightened just a little. Not fear. Anticipation. By evening, when he walked inside the house, his shoulders were stiff. He sat down beside me and said quietly, "She confronted me today. In her office. Behind closed doors." I waited patiently. Let him speak at his pace. She asked me if I reported her. I told her I just answered the executive's questions honestly. He swallowed hard. She got angry. Really angry. She said, "Someone like you should be grateful I even acknowledge your work." Then she said, "Your wife is turning you against me." A slow fire rose in my chest. Not hot. Cold. Focused. I asked him gently, "What did you say?" Daniel looked straight at me. I told her I respect my wife. I believe her. And nothing she says changes that. My eyes softened. This was the man I married. Steady. Honest. True. He continued. She told me to stay for the weekend retreat no matter what. She said missing it would be a sign of disloyalty. I leaned back and inhaled slowly. This was her last power play. An attempt to cling to her shrinking authority. Daniel rubbed his face. "I do not want to go. Not after all this." I looked at him calmly. "Then do not go." He hesitated. "But what about my job?" I placed my hands on his. "Listen carefully. Your integrity will protect your job. Not her. Not fear." Daniel nodded slowly. Trusting. Relieved. That night while he slept, I stayed awake thinking. Zoe had crossed every boundary. Professional. Ethical. Personal. And now she was spiraling. When people in power start to fall, they scramble, grab, push, manipulate. But they forget something. Truth has its own rhythm. Its own timing. Its own force. The next day the storm hit. Daniel called me during his lunch break. His voice tense. She just yelled at me in the hallway. In front of other employees. She said I lied. She said I betrayed her. She said. He paused. She said you poisoned my mind. I stood up from the couch. Not from anger. But because I felt the moment shift. The moment when silence was no longer strength. The moment when stepping forward became necessary. I asked him, "Where are you now?" In a small meeting room. He sighed. "I feel humiliated." Everyone heard her. I closed my eyes and took a slow breath. "It is time." His voice trembled. "Time for what?" "Time for me to step in." Not as a jealous wife, not as a competitor, but as a woman who will not allow another woman to abuse her husband or misuse her authority. I changed into simple office wear, a cream blouse, dark pants, a calm, steady look. Not for show, for clarity, for intention. When I arrived at his office, the receptionist greeted me quietly. Something happened today. People are talking. Zoe is not herself. I nodded once. Where is the executive office? She pointed down the hall, and I walked there with sure steps. Not rushing, not hesitating, just grounded. A senior executive named Robert opened the door when I knocked. He looked surprised but polite. How can I help you? I spoke with steady warmth. I am Daniel's wife, and I think it is time you hear the full story. He invited me inside. I asked him gently, before I speak, may I ask something? Have you received complaints about Zoe before? He sighed. More than a few, but nothing solid enough to act on. Until recently. I sat across from him, then listened as I explained everything. Not with dramatics, not with exaggeration, just clear truth. The inappropriate closeness, the late messages, the criticism of me, the attempt to separate us, the public yelling at Daniel, her aggressive control tactics. Robert listened carefully, his expression shifting from concern to disbelief to disappointment. When I finished, he leaned back. Thank you for coming. This confirms the pattern we suspected. We take this very seriously. I nodded. I am not here to punish her. I am here to protect my husband, and to protect the integrity of your company. He nodded slowly. I promise we will look into this immediately. As I walked out, I felt Zoe before I saw her. Her heels clicking, her anger radiating like heat. She blocked my path, her eyes blazing, her voice low. What did you just do? I turned to her calmly. What I had to. She stepped closer. You think you can ruin me? I held my head high. Nobody ruins you, Zoe. You do that yourself. Her lips trembled with rage. You are jealous. Old and jealous. I lifted my chin. Age is not a weakness, but insecurity is. And you are drowning in it. Before she could speak, Robert came out of his office. Zoe, we need to talk. Now. Her face paled. Just slightly. But I saw it. I stepped aside. Let her walk past. Let her face what she had created. Daniel came running down the hall toward me, his eyes anxious. Are you okay? What happened? I took his hand. It is handled. He looked at me with awe. How did you do that? I smiled softly. By remembering who I am. A woman who does not break. A woman who does not step back. A woman who knows her strength. As we left the building together, I felt something lift off my chest. Not victory. Not vengeance. Just peace. Because the battle was shifting. Zoe was losing control. And real consequences were coming. But the story was not finished. Not yet. Her downfall. Her realization. Her last attempt. All of that was still ahead. And I was ready for every part of it. I walked into the final review meeting with the same calm strength that carried me through every storm in my life, the same strength Marina kept underestimating from day one. She sat at the head of the long glass table wearing her usual confident smirk, but her eyes flickered with something new, a thin slice of uncertainty, as if she finally realized the woman she tried to corner was someone she should have never challenged. Dylan sat beside me and squeezed my hand under the table, a tiny reminder that whatever happened today, we had already won because we had not broken under pressure, we had risen above it. Marina cleared her throat and tried to regain her posture. So let us begin, she said in that overly polished tone she used whenever she felt threatened. The panel members shifted through their folders, but I already knew what they were about to reveal because I was the one who brought every fact, every proof, every witness, every timeline straight to the company ethics department. One member spoke. We have reviewed the reports regarding the leadership changes, employee harassment, manipulation of project credit, and misuse of authority. Marina straightened her back. Those claims are exaggerated, she said, though her voice trembled ever so slightly. But the panel continued. Additionally, new evidence confirms that several employees were pressured to rewrite data to undermine senior staff. Your personal messages were found instructing team leads to cut Dylan out of decision-making and create performance doubts without valid cause. Her face drained of all color as she realized her private commands had become public truth. Then the head reviewer turned to me. And we found that you, Mrs. Dalton, played a vital role in uncovering the inconsistencies and protecting the integrity of the department. Your clarity and resilience were crucial in this investigation, and your professional background in conflict resolution has been noted. Marina snapped. She is not an employee, she is just a spouse interfering where she should not. Before anyone could respond, I leaned forward, my voice steady. I interfered because you tried to use my age as a weapon against my family and you thought I would stay quiet. I acted because integrity is not bound to job titles and courage does not come with an expiration date. The room held its breath. Then the panel delivered their decision. Marina, effective immediately, your contract is terminated. You are no longer authorized to access company systems. You will be escorted out after this meeting. Marina froze, her authority melting away, her arrogance evaporating, her power dissolving like it had never existed at all. She turned toward Dylan with wide eyes. You caused this. Dylan replied gently but firmly. No, Marina, you caused this when you underestimated the wrong woman. Security entered quietly and Marina stood up slowly, her pride fighting to hold itself together. She threw one final glare at me, trying one last time to intimidate me. I simply met her gaze without flinching. Power is not something you take from people, it is something they build within themselves, and you never understood that. The door shut behind her, and the room finally exhaled. After the meeting, several board members approached me, thanking me for my courage, offering consulting opportunities, praising the way I conducted myself with calm professionalism. But the most important moment came after we stepped outside into the crisp evening air. Dylan took my hands and looked at me the way a man looks at the one person who changed his whole world. You saved my career, he whispered. No, I saved our respect, I said, and that matters even more than any job. Weeks later, the company officially offered Dylan a director-level position, free of sabotage, free of manipulation, free of hidden battles. They also invited me to lead workshops for senior leaders across multiple branches, helping them learn one universal truth. Experience is a form of power. Age is a form of strength. And underestimating a woman who has lived a full life is the biggest mistake anyone can make. Marina disappeared from the industry completely, her reputation sunk by her own actions. As for me, I found a new sense of purpose, knowing that even in a world quick to idolize youth, there is a different, deeper kind of influence that only women like me hold. The kind built from surviving storms. The kind shaped by facing people like Marina. The kind earned through every year lived with intention. The kind that never fades. And now when someone tries to decide my worth based on my age, I smile, because they have no idea what kind of power they are standing in front of. The kind they can never defeat.